I wanted to make a video in light of recent events and about stuff that's happened years ago, months ago, just important. I'm going to be talking about the legal system. So why am I talking about the legal system? Well, recently a sexual predator known as Bill Cosby, who is a famous celebrity who had been arrested and even charged with multiple, like dozens of counts of sexual exploitation and assault, which were proven to be true. He was extradited, meaning he was let out of prison. And you know what he's going to do as soon as he gets out of prison? Is that he's planning to go on a comedy tour following prison release. He did these comedy tours, and in these comedy tours, he took advantage of women. This shows the absolute ignorance of our court system. But let me go even further. You know Paul Miller, Gypsy Crusader? This guy who was arrested for this guy who did all the racist stuff with he would basically be like, oh, this N-word over here. He was very racist. I think you know who he is. But he was arrested. Yeah. You probably haven't been seeing him for a few months. His channel or whatever hasn't died. He was actually arrested. So he was arrested about 4 months ago on charges of illegally owning several firearms. So if you didn't know, he had a felony. None of the articles really say why he got a felony, but he had a felony. And if you don't know the backstory behind him, basically he became super radical and racist because he was beat up by Antifa and BLM members. And he was named the real life Joker because he has such a crazy backstory. But he's been arrested. And you know how many years he got in prison? 30 fucking years. Bill Cosby gets 10 years and then gets let out, even though he manipulated dozens of women. And all this guy did, he bought guns to protect himself from Antifa members that were going to try to kill him. But they don't care, because he's a quote-unquote threat to society. Yeah, he's racist, but he's not a threat to society. They only arrested him because they saw him as a boogeyman. He opposed the government. He opposed He opposed the bigger picture. He opposed Antifa, BLM, but at the same time, he was not Republican or whatever. He was different, and they feared that. They could not tell what political spectrum he was on. They could not identify him. So they raided his home, the FBI, and he was arrested. For some reason, it took him 7 hours, even though in most FBI raids, it would only take a few hours, like 2 to 3. And the only evidence they found was ammunition. Why did they have to take so long to search his room, his house? Very interesting. 30 years. 30 fucking years. So, continuing my rant about the legal system, I'll be talking about predators. I did kind of talk about it with Bill Cosby, but I want to go a little further with other situations that have been happening recently, such as them not being arrested. See, nowadays, there's so many groomers and pedophiles on the internet. For some reason, though, they never get arrested. And I think I have an explanation for a lot of reasons. Cosmodor was exposed for grooming, but he's from Germany, and technically the age consent's 14, so they couldn't get him. Mini Lad was most likely probably going to get put in custody, so he fled the country and went to Ireland. So yeah, that should be illegal, but somehow it's not. He was never arrested or charged. He still makes videos today, even though they get bombed. Some other situations, such as people in the Friday Night Fucking community, and other communities getting exposed, a bunch of shit like that. But they have never been arrested. Okay, and it's crazy because there's so much evidence they don't get arrested. Like so many of these big YouTubers and celebrities, but they never get arrested. Like what the fuck? Even ones that are in the United States, I don't really know exactly how a lot of law works, but if you have direct evidence, and if the FBI investigates them, they should be able to arrest them because they can just trace that back to the person since the Patriot Act exists. If you can subpoena them and the FBI can legally spy on people. It was a law passed in 2001 after 9/11 for quote unquote cybersecurity, but they never used that law to actually like catch pedophiles because usually most pedophiles you see are people on the internet, grooming minors and stuff, and they have direct evidence to it. They just don't. They don't arrest them. You can just trace it back, find their actual identity, and arrest them because you have direct evidence, and they're the FBI. But they never do. It's very interesting. It's like they want to help criminals, and I'm gonna explain why. So I'm going to talk about a bunch of the self-defense stuff and people getting arrested who are actually innocent. See, there's corruption. Usually in small towns, there's more corruption since, you always hear the stereotype of like big town cop or whatever goes to a small town and gets corrupt. That does actually happen. See, the reason why small towns can get corrupted is because they can just do a county sentencing and that person can falsely be sentenced for murder or a crime like that. And that's happened a lot. I mean, hell, unfortunately, it's even happened in southern states like Texas, which it usually happens in places like California or Yankee states. But the thing about this is that even in the Supreme Court, people still get punished for stuff they shouldn't get punished, like self-defense. There's multiple cases of people fighting for their lives, killing someone, such as a case in Oklahoma. This man shot 3 home intruders, and they tried to get him for murder. It did not work. The charges were dropped. Another case is Kyle Rittenhouse. He was at Portland, and a bunch of rioters tried to kill him by throwing Molotovs and waving weapons at him, and he pulled out an AR-15 rifle and started shooting at them. He killed 2 of them and injured 5. They tried to pass it as a mass shooting, even though the only reason why they tried to convict him is because the people that tried to literally murder him were Antifa and BLM members. It's political corruption, but fortunately, he was cleared of all charges. But not everyone's that lucky. This is not the only example. We've seen other examples. We've seen examples that don't exactly get people arrested, but stuff like getting their careers canceled, such as Slazo and Pro Jared. Zaptai. And people believe it face value. And, it's horrible because it covers over real situations of rape and pedophilia. And unfortunately, some people now are skeptical about every single situation of a celebrity getting outed. And we've seen a recent trend where they'll out themselves out to avoid getting exposed and to avoid the victim speaking out. Big examples being John Bob, Chaotic, Cosby did it, and several others artists who were exposed on Twitter, or at least outed themselves out. Heroes, even though they groomed minors and don't feel any remorse. These people, they're just the reason why they out themselves out. Because if they don't let the victim speak, they can maybe regain a little community. Because Cosmodor has kept uploading. He stopped uploading. But he's made apology after apology. But you can't apologize for something like that. Pretty much all pedophiles and groomers, they don't feel sorry for what they did. They do not. Just the same with actual murderers. They don't feel sorry for what they did. Real psychopaths will never change. And pedophiles will never change. Unfortunately, you can't take the law into your own hands, But that's a discussion for probably a second part. I'm probably going to discuss about, taking the law into your own hands. But that'll be in part 2, because this video's getting long, so that's all I have to say, gamers. And bye.